Welcome back, Brad here again. I'm excited. This is going to be a good one. It's something for me that I've talked about a lot in seminar before, and it's very fleshed out content. But if you look at any of my videos that I have online on YouTube or anything like that, it's just something that I don't normally release to the general public because it's a little risque. What am I talking about? LMR, getting resistance in the bedroom, how to get better at that, because I think it's actually an integral part of the pickup process, yet it's almost never talked about. So here I am giving it to my immersion crew, month 8 or 9 or whatever in here, and I'm excited to bring it out. Just don't put this out there. I'm gonna say this now and all of a sudden I'll be on Conan O'Brien 10 years from now and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, the hand on dick move, what is that? And another funny little experience before I get into the conversation is, I remember I was talking about this at a seminar I was in Paris. So I'm in Paris, you figure no one here speaks English, and we're in this little cafe, quaint little cafe, and I'm talking to the clients, this client's right over here, in a little cafe bench thing outside, looking over at the French Riviera, not Riviera, but just like cool French, like the Seine or whatever river's there. And I'm going like, hand on dick move, and no means not yet, and stuff like that. And all of a sudden right here, which is a couple, they're Asian, and I didn't assume they'd speak English. And the lady turns to me in perfect English and says, are you guys really talking about this right now? Did you really pay this guy to learn this stuff right now? And it was very awkward, and we got the hell out of there. Yet I think it is actually really awesome advice, so here it is coming at you. I think the way I want to start things off is first with a little story. A little story of my first exposure to what is so-called LMR, or getting resistance right at the end. Or another way I like to say it, if the game is like going from level 1 to level 10, 1 is meeting her, 10 is closing, sealing the deal, is when you lose it at level 9, you're in the bedroom and you're rolling around. And I remember for me, I didn't take in a boot camp yet as a client or anything. And I started getting a lot of dates, getting girls' numbers, and I had a lot of really cute girls, making out, all that sort of stuff. And what happened is I specifically had 3 girls in a row, 3 nights in a row, and they all got to the exact same point. I've talked about way at the beginning of this immersions program, how to do the day 2 and stuff like that. And I felt very consistent that after the initial interaction, it went well. And then we got on the date, and that went really well. And I was able to pull her out, and almost every single time I could get her back to my place. And then what would happen is we'd be rolling around, get her in the bedroom, and I'll talk about how to get her in the bedroom. And get the top off, the bra off, and I'll explain some of that stuff. We'll get into everything here. And all of a sudden, boom, get to the pants. No. 3 girls, 3 days in a row, the exact same spot. And after you see this recurring pattern of when things are ending, I started thinking to myself, is this an issue with them and something that whatever on their end? Or is this probably something more focused on me because it's the exact same spot for every girl? And I noticed that it obviously was me at the time. For me, what I noticed then specifically was I was waiting for permission from the girl. And for me, because I didn't think it was a big deal to take a bra off or something like that, I didn't wait for permission. I didn't think it was anything special. But all of a sudden you get to that, like the pants phase, and you're thinking, oh my God, we're getting pretty close here. And because I wasn't comfortable going there and just assuming it was gonna happen, they weren't gonna initiate and say, yes, take them off. So because I never got permission and I wasn't leading there, that's why I ultimately lost those girls specifically way back 6, 7, 8 years ago. And the way I normally teach LMR principles, again, I'm just going to call it LMR from here on out, so hopefully you can deal with that, stay with the old school jargon there, is what happens in the first 5 to 10 minutes directly relates to the last 5 or 10 minutes. I've probably said that before, and that's something even when it comes down to the resistance in the bedroom. So the more you can be unapologetic, that man-to-woman frame, leading the vibe, leading the interaction throughout. If you're in there and you open really strong and you got that very sexual, unapologetic vibe by the way you're looking at her, the way you're talking to her, and then you keep it moving forward, you lead her over here, you lead her to the bar, you lead her over there, you lead her in the taxi, you lead her back home, and if you lead her the entire way, boom, all of a sudden when you get into the bedroom and you just say, hey, take your shirt off, she's been following your lead the whole time, submitting, and it seems like a very natural thing to do. I think where guys have a lot of problems usually is because they haven't been leading throughout, and all of a sudden they get the girl home. So they're like in there and they're doing well enough, that things are going well enough that she likes you and she's attracted and she wants to come home with you because you're coming across congruently. And then all of a sudden you get home and you think, now I got a caveman, and all of a sudden you grab her and you throw her in the bedroom, and she said, whoa, where does this come from? This is not congruent with how you've been interacting the whole time. Or another great example is how in the old days, they used to have a much more keeping the chase on sort of thing, where it's like, no, do I like you? I don't really like you. Push, pull, and never really showing your cards there. But then the problem is all of a sudden you get in the bedroom, and because you haven't really been leading, you've been kind of trying to get her to invest and keep moving and gaming you, all of a sudden when you get home, she's not going to be the one to finish like, yeah, stick it in and go the whole way there. That's just not going to happen. So it's better off to initiate that leading from the very beginning, and then it takes care of a lot of the work for you afterwards. I have talked about before the baby steps principle, and we'll kind of briefly kind of go into some of that stuff again. And I think there's two different ways to push through the end zone, whatever. We're going to use all sorts of euphemisms and analogies here. And I think one way is the intermediate beginner sort of way that you're just going to have to use to start off with, and then we'll switch over into the advanced way. Because I personally feel that I use a different technique than I used at the beginning, and I can't really teach that unless you have the experience to kind of go in that way. So starting off with the beginner intermediate style, and this is where you're going to have to really just get comfortable moving things forward, and because you haven't had as much experience taking a girl home and sealing the deal at the end of the night, you're not going to have that assumption frame where you're just assuming, yeah, of course this is going to happen. So because you're not that confident, you don't have the assumption frame, there are a couple little tips and techniques to kind of help you through. As I just mentioned, the baby steps to get her home, which to kind of say again, whatever I'm trying to say, reiterate to you, that's not what I want to say, but refresh for you is where you give her little bits of compliance. So it's like, all of a sudden you pull her out of the club and you go, hey, just get in the taxi. No, you know what, you can just drop me off, but you're not coming inside anyway, so don't want, oh, actually just come in for just one little second, just walk me to the door. You're not coming in, all of a sudden just come inside real quick. And by doing that baby steps, all of a sudden you're like, oh, come on, just sit on the bed. Just come sit on the bed with me. Come on, actually, boom. And all of a sudden now you're making out. And a lot of times once you're in isolation and you're making out on the bed, things kind of lead pretty naturally from there because there's no real repercussions. And that's where most of the RSD material kind of ends, is right there saying like, fade to black, as Jeffy used to say, and kind of move it forward. But that is definitely not the end of the game for me, and I've had a lot of times where I've lost that, where I've gotten much better through experience of dealing with that now. So I want to get into a couple things. One specifically for me is I have a very routine, specific way of how I go from us in the bedroom to us hooking up. And it's everything. I'm not going to give you my specific one because I don't think it matters, but it is sort of the thing where it's like, I know first I want to take my shirt off before I try to take her shirt off to make her feel comfortable. Does that? I don't know. But in my own head, I think it feels comfortable. And then all of a sudden, I'll put her on top. I'm laying on the bed and she's on top. And from there, then I have easy access to the bra and taking her shirts off and all that sort of stuff. And then right after that, I flip it back over. And then it's like, I always lead first. I do things first. And also by me, putting her down, now it's easier to access the pants that way as opposed to the shirt this way. And so knowing that, I've had times where I'm with the girl, it's totally on, everything's cool, and I just assume it's gonna rock. So all of a sudden we get back home and I'm just like, blah, and just try to brute force make it happen. And because I didn't initiate that sort of routine, I lost her basically, because I escalated too quickly, I got too aggressive there, and I didn't go through those standard specific kind of motions and routine that I had there. So now it's something that is just fully ingrained in me. No matter if I'm like, this girl is obviously down, like 100% she is down, no questions, I'll still do the old like, my shirt off first, then her shirt, and I'll do that almost every time. That being said, there are opportunities where you don't want to be, oh, we're in an alley, and all of a sudden, oh, I got to do the LMR thing. That's probably not going to happen there. So definitely don't say that like 100% of the time. Don't be that strict about it. But think about for yourself, what'll happen is you just push it a little bit further every time. Push it a little bit further, and you're getting more and more comfortable in those sort of end stages, and notice patterns that emerge there and how you can use the same things over and over again, and then just make that consistent. I think another good, a couple examples of when LMR hits and for the reasons that it hits. I talked about one is how you initiate yourself things earlier on. That's also why the preview was created. And the preview, I think it's a lot of a screening tool, but it also sets the tone. And I've explained it before, but specifically related to LMR here, is a lot of times when you go in and you think it's totally on and you're getting ready to pull and you give her like the crouching tiger or some pretty hair pull sort of preview of like preview foreshadowing what's going to happen at the end of the night. Then you can kind of screen them out, because some girls, if they're not responding to that at all, I'm going to assume, okay, this girl is probably not down, and I'm going to go find one that is, or I need to do some other things to get her like that. But right now, it's not going to be good when we get home. And I don't want to really risk that, especially if I'm out with my friends and stuff, and I get the girl all the way home, and then we just roll around in bed and make out. That's like a waste of my time. I'd rather just go off and have fun with my friends instead. So I want to screen this girl pretty heavily to know that this is the one that I'm going to rock with and take home, you know? So that's the preview works for the screening. But on the other side, what it does is it initiates a tone moving forward. And I've had a lot of times at the end of the night where I can just be like, hey, grab your purse. And she's like, in her head, she thinks, okay, we're leaving now. She goes and grabs her purse, and it's basically like we've been dating for 6 months, and I put my hand out, she puts her hand out, we walk home, get home, and everything is super smooth. I do the little things still, of course, like my little routine that I talked about before, but everything is nice and smooth. And a lot of that came from, boom, this is what we're going to be doing later. And I think it's really good for 2 reasons. And this is the other thing I was going to talk about before when I said the beginner and the intermediate level compared to the advanced, is how you actually pull, how you actually get the girl out of there. And if I think earlier on, probably the main one I would say is like, after party, let's go have an after party. And that worked really well. Although sometimes the friends heard it and they hear the after party and they're saying, oh, you're having a party? We'll come too. And that's obviously not good. But what is an after party? It's my laptop with some speaker, like the music playing through there, and then, you know, a drink, a glass of something. So that worked out really well, starting off early on. And that kind of goes back to the baby steps sort of thing. But as you get better and better and more assuming that this is going to happen, you can get just really blatant about what's happening here. So I'll say, hey, let's get out of here. She'll ask, what are we doing? You know what we're doing. Like this conversation doesn't really usually happen because of the preview sort of stuff. But a lot of times I'll just grab her and I'll be like, I'm going to do this to you, and I'm going to like pull your hair, and I'm going to take you, like, oh, I'm just going to fuck you so hard, and really getting pretty explicit there. And then when she knows that, there isn't that weird LMR shit when you get home, because I've screened those sort of girls out. But also by me initiating this sort of stuff here, she all of a sudden's like, oh yeah, he's comfortable with that sort of thing. He's comfortable with that sexuality and putting that out there. So then when we get home, she's already assuming like, oh, I'm not going to be judged here because this isn't a big deal to him. He's relaxed and comfortable with this sort of thing. So again, a lot of the things you do before you get home is just going to help you out. A couple specifics of when you get back home. One, I've noticed that for me, I always just have alcohol around anyways, even if I'm in a hotel or something. And I do think it's good, even if you don't drink, to make a drink for her or something, because it just kind of loosens things up a bit. And I've had so many times where I make the girl drink, we have sips, and all of a sudden she's thinking, or she says, oh, I'm so drunk right now. And the next day I wake up and I see the drinks, and she's taking one little sip out of it. So one, I don't really add much alcohol to hers at all, because I'm pretty cheap. But also I don't want to make it look like I'm trying to get her hammered or something like that. But it is good just to have those there for another kind of plausible deniability sort of thing. And usually that whole process, when I'm living in the same place, again, it's the same sort of routine. The girl and I get back home. I kind of make a drink and let her get comfortable with the space. So I think that's good too. Again, you don't want to just like jump on her and pummel on top of her right as you get inside. So I'll be like, oh, what do you want to drink? And I'll kind of go off into the kitchen, make my drink. She's feeling comfortable, getting relaxed with the place, looking around, looking at it. And as she eases in, I set the drinks down. We take about one sip, and then usually it's start making out, rocking that shit, making out, going with that sort of thing. I do usually, like I said, initiate the makeout in the club, but definitely on the way home, making it a lot of fun. And I'm sure I've talked about this before, I think in the intermediate section of the end game, where you want to keep it playful, you want to keep it fun. If you're in the taxi, you know, you want to be hip checking her and bumping around and getting those makeouts in and kind of initiating that fun, playful, intimate vibe before you get home. And I'll talk about it in a second if you don't, some things you can do there. But because I'm playful and fun, all of a sudden we get her home and I just pull her in, kind of go for the makeout. And if I'm in the right situation, I'm strong enough, usually after that makeout, I'll just pick her up and carry her. And she'll be like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I'm like, you're coming in here. And it's like, you know, there's no explanation. Throw her on the bed, do the little routine of glory I talked about before. I need to name that or something. And then things flow naturally that way. I do notice some examples of other times where you having issues is one is the girls on the couch. Let's say, you know, you watch a movie. So when would this happen? There's a couple times, you know, one would be you invite the girl over for day 2. You met the first night out And the number 2, she came over for a movie. That's obviously a good thing, right? She's comfortable coming to your place. Or maybe it happens on day 3 or day 4, a couple dates after you meet her. You finally get her back inside, and you're watching the movie. And she's watching the movie right here. And in your head, you're thinking, fuck, I need to do something to some sort of like escalate or do something there. And but it would just be weird to kind of like jump on her or something. The playfulness is always the perfect way to push forward and push things to the next level. That's funny, actually. As I said this, it reminds me of an old article that I wrote on my blog where I said a pillow fight always gives you a +1. So if all of a sudden you got the girl and you got the shirt off, but she won't take her bra off, and you're there and you're trying to get at the bra, and she's like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. All of a sudden, take a pillow, and we're like, pillow fight. Oh, you pump her up. Boom, all of a sudden, bra comes off, and she's like, whoa, how do you do that? So you always can get playful with it, and it's a great time to escalate. So again, if you're on the couch, that's another time where usually I'll just be on the couch and I'll just be kind of like it's totally obvious, but I'm just like, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, and then you're getting some touch and physicality going there. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, come here, which is a little bit more smooth than just kind of and just trying to go for it. And then usually, like I said, from the makeout phase, a lot of it is, I guess, getting explicit enough, is starting to turn her on there and getting her turned on enough that she gets ready for it and kind of all the inhibitions go away. So that's why, the more clothes you can get off, the more access you have to things, I guess. And so as you're making out, then you can kind of start creating that vibe, get her more turned on, and then if you can pick her up and carry her into the bedroom to kind of finish things there, or just end it on the couch. Those are the kind of the main things that I got going on there. Okay, I think it would be good actually just to get into a couple more random instances of how this happens, because the tough part about all this is that there's so many variables that come into play as you get further along in the interaction that there's all sorts of shit that you're going to have to deal with, and a lot of it you're just going to have to do it once, and then all of a sudden you figure it out. Actually, the biggest one that I think is most important is verbal shit that's going on there. And I remember the first post I ever had on RSD Nation, it was about this one girl that I met at a wedding. And it was funny because my old 8-year ex-girlfriend, was actually there. And she brought her new boyfriend who I'd known and stuff. So that was all weird and dramaful. And she was really hot, like really, really hot. Hotter than a lot of girls that I got with after that for a while. And she was the only single girl there. And I just watched transformations, and I'm like, oh, pull the girl and do all this sort of stuff. And I ended up pulling her to the car, and we're kind of making out and get ready, like getting intimate and stuff. And all of a sudden she says, we're not sleeping together tonight. And I thought, damn, okay. So right after that, I stopped kissing her, and I said, okay, let's just go back inside then. We go back inside, and I hang out for a bit, and then I just leave. I didn't even get her number. And then I went on RSD Nation a couple days later, and I saw, anytime a girl says, we are not having sex tonight, means she's thinking about having sex with you, and you will have sex with her. And I thought, I'm an idiot. That seems fairly obvious now, but at the time it didn't. So hopefully that helps you out for some of you guys, although we're in month 8 here, month 9, so hopefully you figured that out by now, but maybe not. So that's a really important one for me, is anytime I hear anything where she says, we're not fucking tonight, or we're not having sex, or something like that, that's actually a good indicator for me, because that means she's thinking about that sort of thing, or I'm putting off that right sort of vibe. And a lot of times that is a good shit test where I'm just like, I don't care, or whatever, and it shows that you're comfortable with that, and also that you're not freaking out, like, oh no, I didn't say we were gonna do that, like, who said we were gonna hook up tonight, what, like, what, and trying to like justify yourself or something like that. So that's one thing to watch out for, the verbal side of things. That's actually a very good thing. Another one that I've dealt with a lot of times is, you're taking the girl home, let's say you're winging a friend. That's usually when this happens, and you haven't really talked to your girl. You're just winging the friend, and you haven't really initiated things. The way the interaction has gone is like it hasn't been a solid interaction. It's just your friend was in there and they're totally on, and you're just like, hey, I'm the cool friend here. Let's pull together. And let's say you're pulling a 2-set and you're the other 2 guys. And then what you think is like normally the way you do things when you get back home, you have your normal routine of boom, I'm going to escalate, make out, boom, get her in the bedroom and do that whole thing. But because you haven't initiated any trust there, you actually have to slow play it a bit. So I feel, again, this is why the preview and stuff like that, the more work I can do in the club, then when I can get home, boom, all of a sudden we go right in and kind of get the deed done there. But if I'm not able to kind of do that there, I know that I'm going to have to work on that a little bit when we get back home. So I'm probably going to maybe have to pull her outside, like let the friend and my wing going into the hotel room or something. They're doing their shit in there. Well, I'm probably like either take her into the bathroom or take her out into the hallway. Like, oh, we're gonna go get ice. Go get ice, and then I'm gonna be talking to her. And kind of now I'm showing my persona and the charisma and building that attraction and the trust and showing that I'm a cool guy too. It's definitely going to be a lot easier, the fact that her friend's hooking up, because she's not going to feel judged. She just needs to see that you're actually like a cool enough guy that it's going to be cool, and you just haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. So definitely in those instances, if all of a sudden you get back home and you're thinking, okay, I haven't initiated things far enough, and it's that sort of interaction, or you just pulled her right off the street, is another time where it's like, okay, if you feel that if she's a little apprehensive to the initial kind of escalation, then it's like, okay, I need to build more trust and build a little bit of traction here and kind of take things back that way. A little bit more of an advanced thing, or a harem, fuck buddy, whatever sort of thing, is if you haven't seen someone for a couple months. So me traveling around the world, all of a sudden I'll go back to San Diego and I'll see a girl that I haven't seen her in 6 months. Maybe I texted her once or twice, but she's totally down to meet up and she's excited to see me. And all of a sudden I see her, let's say it's 2 a.m. and we finally meet up after boot camp or something. And I'm thinking in my head, well, I've already hooked up with her. This shouldn't be that hard. And I'll just kind of like escalate and try to like brute force it, not even really thinking about it. And I've had girls that kind of freaked out, or we ended up not hooking up because I just assumed too much too quickly. And even though they are probably comfortable with you and they're attracted to you, they're gonna need to be warmed up a little bit again. So in knowing that, when I'm in those situations and the girl kind of comes back, I know, again, just as I said before, I'll talk to her for a little bit, kind of joke around, get her comfortable, and then go back onto the normal, what did I call it, the routine of glory or some shit, and get that whole thing going nice and smoothly and not try to push it too quickly. Again, I want to reiterate how the importance of, at the end game stuff, to be very decisive about things. I talked about at the very beginning how I was waiting for permission from her. And it's always good to remember the reframe there of how likely is it that she's done this before? How likely is it that she met a guy that same night and all of a sudden is going home to hook up or something like that? It might happen a few times, but I'm betting it's single digits. And even if it is for you as well, you have to pretend like you know what you're doing and be really decisive. And even in your head, you're thinking, is this the right thing to do here? Just be like, yeah, take your shirt off, and go with it. They're going to just follow that decisiveness and assume, oh, this is just what we're supposed to do when we get home. Oh, this is what it looks like in the movies. I didn't really know any better. I'm trying to think of more other random ones. Another good random thing is some sort of noise. I think girls get self-conscious when there's, if it's too quiet. So especially if the other one's hooking up in there and then I'm in the bathroom, I'll turn the sink on to get some white noise so they don't hear the like, and all the weird sexual noises or whatever. Music's always a great thing, and I always have that set up at my home, so I know if I get a girl back, it's going to be all set up to kind of turn that on. Because I think there's that tenuous thing going on there when all of a sudden you get the girl home and she's like, well, I'm in a stranger's house or I'm in a stranger's hotel room. I want to, as quickly as possible, get some music on, as well as mood lighting. These things kind of seem obvious, I guess, but it's good to kind of, have things set. We always do it before we leave the hotel, is set up the mood lighting so we know when we bring the girl back, it's already set up, and make the beds. Don't have like random weird condom wrappers and shit like that on the ground from the night before or something. So I do actually think about somehow prepping the room beforehand. And it's kind of good. I guess it gives you that confidence of thinking, all right, I'm going to do this tonight. I'm going to bring a girl back. Whereas I've noticed for me a lot of, and I think I've talked about this in actually the Evolutions product, where a lot of confidence I get for pulling a girl is confidence in my logistics. If I know I have a really nice hotel room or stuff like that, I'm actually, my game is better because I'm just more confident and I want to do it. There was one other thing that I wanted to mention before we get on to kind of some like really end game stuff and kind of like actual sexual shit is I think a lot of times because you get so heavily involved in pickup and this is a big deal to you and the game is played at the end and all of a sudden you're finally there and you're sealing the deal with the girl, everything's rocking and it's a big deal to you and you're thinking, holy shit, I've worked so hard. Here I finally am. Let's do this. And then all of a sudden the girl gives you a little bit of resistance and you think, what am I doing wrong? Or you get emotional or you get pissed at her for like leaving everything else or investing so much time and it's still not happening. And the old school shit, they always say, you can't get emotional about it. But also turn the tables, right? Turn the tables on her. If you've initiated the things like the preview and you've been very sexual and she's been sexual with you and all of a sudden you get home and she's like, no, I'm not doing this. It's actually good. They say you don't want to get too logical, But on some level, it is good to just be like, hey, you know, I just don't play games, and I'm not even turned on by this. Like, legitimately, you are turning me off because you don't know what you want. Like, are you an adult here? You know, we had so much fun before, and now you're all like, no, I'm not like that. And that's just, it's really not that attractive to me. And I've actually verbalized shit kind of like that before. I'm just like, you know, I'm just not into this. As opposed, and again, it's bringing the chainsaw in the room at the very end there. That's a principle, again, from Evolutions, if you forgot it, where when you're in the interaction with the girl and you feel like things are a little bit off, instead of trying to fight through it and game your way through it, actually just bringing that out and putting it on the table, saying, hey, why are you acting a little weird right now? I'll do the same thing there, but no matter, you can't be emotional about like, why are you doing this? I brought you home, and you can't be pissed about it for sure. And you just got to keep it very level-headed. Go there, and then you can fall back into the playfulness stuff again after the fact, and kind of like, oh, no, we're just joking, just blah, 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 after the fact. But it is sometimes good to just like lay the law down and say, hey, you know what? I'm not enjoying this. You know, well, I didn't really expect this, but if you're gonna be like this, you might as well just head out or leave or something, because I'm not having fun and I want to have a good night's sleep. And also getting unapologetic there too. I think that's actually thinking about like after the fact. Something that I had to learn is getting comfortable like kicking her out, especially if I have friends in the hotel room. That's something that I train all my brigade guys. I call it cherishing in the night. I'm like, no cherishing. Once you're done, the deed is done. Like, get her out so the next guy can bring his girl in. It's like assembly line or some shit. And be like, okay, no like laying in bed and cuddling, because I don't want to be sleeping in the bed next to them and all of a sudden I hear slurpy noises and stuff like that. It's like, hey, that's not what this shit is about. Get it over with. And that is getting comfortable with that. I think another random little thing that sets that signal up is all of a sudden if you get out of bed and start putting your clothes on, she sees like, oh, this is done. I guess I'll put my clothes on too. So you don't have to like always fully verbalize it, but that's actually a good indicator, something I learned along the way. Hopefully it helps you out. Lastly, I just want to say a little bit about, you know, actually, boom, in the bedroom. And the stuff that I got specifically, I don't even know if the book still exists, but it was called Sex God Method by Daniel Rose. I think the dude's actually kind of weird in general, but the book was really good. And the thing that I really got out of it, there's 4 principles of like what good sex is. And those 4 principles, 1 is dominance, 2 is immersing yourself in the moment, 3 is some variety, and then 4 is bringing the emotion side into it. And as I've mentioned before with physicality and a lot of other things, is that guys, we always think things are very mechanical. So you think, I remember back when my ex-girlfriend, the 8-year one, it was like we were married, so I had to like seduce her every time we went to bed. So it was like, I started reading all these books thinking maybe I need more like cunnilingus skills, or like, is it some Kama Sutra shit? And I was learning all these technical, mechanical things, when actually the things that were missing was a little bit of dominance, getting comfortable, you know, holding a girl down and seeing, you know, girls like that, and getting more comfortable being dominant in the bedroom. Immersing myself, being very present instead of thinking like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here, and like, oh, baseball, like getting very immersed in the moment and actually enjoying that. I think that's good. Variety, that's an obvious one. That's, you know, the mechanical, whatever, stuff like that. And then the emotions, really diving into that, being like, oh, wow, you're really beautiful, and I can't believe, like, this is a lot of whatever, just getting very authentic about what you're actually thinking and feeling. And when you mix the two together, when you mix the whole like, I'm emotional, because some guys are just all like, oh, it's love, it's emotional. You have that, but they're missing the dominance. But when all of a sudden you're like, oh, dominant, and then you switch it up, and you create that variety both in the vibe as well as mechanically, I guess you say, that's been really powerful for me to build a lot of confidence in the bedroom, and then build a lot of confidence, you know, when I'm in the club or anything like that, knowing like, when we go home, this is going to be good. Like, this is going to be awesome here. Because I've definitely had issues when I was very inexperienced early on, where I was talking to that girl and I was thinking, I'm not that good when we get home. So, and that doubt that kind of kicked in made it a little harder for me to kind of seal the deal and take the whole interaction the whole way. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. Like I said, this is probably about as explicit as I get. I'm very PG all the time, it's bullshit. But this is some really hardcore shit, and I'm excited to finally get it out there. And definitely leave a comment on what you think, or if you have any questions about this stuff, because like I said, I think this stuff's awesome, and is where the game is played. The game is played at the end there. Hopefully you enjoyed this week. I'll see you next time. As always, enjoy.